Today is October 11th, 2013. We are at the annual FABA conference, which is the Florida Artist Blacksmith Association, here in Ocala, Florida. I'm Dot Butler, and I am interviewing Willard Smith, who is one of our founding fathers for FABA and also a co-founder of the Panhandle Pioneer Art Settlement. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
We'd like to know, tell us how and when you got into blacksmithing. What got you started?
I was brought up with it as a kid, and after I got to be a young teenager, after World War II, all this stuff vanished. And I felt a void in my life that, I'd really like to get out here and work with it again. And in the meantime, we had a recession, and people started opening up fireplaces and wood stoves to offset the cost of the fuel that had shot up. And I knew an old man over in South Alabama. He was 92 years old, still blacksmithing. So I would go over there and spend Saturdays with him to catch up and learn a lot of the stuff I didn't know. And I got to thinking about, it would be nice to have an organization here in Florida. I'd heard about the FABA, at the time, and I called them and asked to get a list of the people that was members from Florida. So I drew up a letter and sent out to each one of them, and found out that the secretary of FABA was living here in Florida, Dr. Carl Van Arn. So I went to see him and asked him about what the possibilities was starting a chapter in Florida. And he said, Florida is a very big state. How in the world would you ever get them all together? So in the meantime, with the letters I sent out, we had a meeting over at the Junior Museum in Tallahassee, which was changed its name now to, can't even tell you what the name of it is. But anyhow, there was about 15, 18 of us showed up from all over the state. And I got to meet these people for the first time. And they got excited about it. And because the closest thing around was the Appalachian chapter up in Tennessee. And they said, well, let's meet a time or two and let's host a meeting here at the Junior Museum and then invite all the people to come that we know. And we did that, and we gathered up a few more and had a meeting, and it just started sort of snowballing from there. And in the meantime, we went to Madison, found out about the conference up there, and went up there. And Stan Strickland was a FABA president. And he said, why don't y'all join and form today while you're up here, and I will sanction it, and there won't have to be any letter writing done. So Stan Strickland came to our group meeting, and he encouraged us to do that, and they said, let's do it. So we formed as a chapter right then. And I forgot how many people were there at that meeting, but there was quite a few, and quite a few charter members joined on. And there's a picture floating around with the members that joined that time. So it's we got some good officers in it, and they got gung-ho, and we really started growing and having public exhibitions and going all over the place to do that, and it's turned out wonderful.
Where was your first conference?
Tallahassee at the Governor Motel, I believe it was.
Do you remember who the first demonstrators were? Who was there?
I remember one of them, Judd Nelson, was one of the demonstrators we got down, and It's sort of like here today. They let us have access to the different facilities there, and we had a tent, and we brought in quite a few people. And it seemed like from every meeting that we would have, we was always having people that was joining the organization because they had always been interested or knew somebody that was and had been a blacksmith. So, you know, I think when I left office, there was around 200 members. I don't remember in what order that we had the conferences, but we had one here at Ocala at the Clombs. We had one down in Tampa at Ray Nager's, and then they began to have them at Barberville, I believe, and that's where they've been pretty well every year since then.
So you said that you knew about blacksmithing as a child, as a young person. Did you have relatives, or did you know people who blacksmith at that time?
It was in my family, and my grandparents, he always had an anvil, and he would mostly was not into building stuff. When he was plowing his animals and bend the iron equipment that he was using, he would heat it up and straighten it back out. And the fire, how hot the fire got and the metal got, really fascinates a child, and how soft it is. And I was fortunate enough to spend some time at O'Neill Lumber Company, and they had a blacksmith there. And he would go to sleep on the coal pile, and he was dirty as he could be and black, but when he got woke up and they had him a job to do, some of the most beautiful work he would turn out. And you know, it got me to thinking later on, you know, our limitations is only we're in charge of them. There's no limit to what we can do if we just set our mind to it, put a little thinking into it. And this blacksmithing gives these people an opportunity to stretch their minds on what's possible to build. And when a child or an adult sees they finally got something in their head how to build it, the joy and the expression on their face, anticipation is there. I just can't hardly wait to get home to fire up the forge and do this, you know. We all want to learn, adults and children, you know. And one of the disservices we're doing right now to our kids is not teaching them hands-on stuff and to use their mind, how to create things. And this is one area that really helps them to do that. I see them out here today. One of the kids that I taught several years ago in the beginning blacksmith class, he came up to me and he told me what all he'd been doing, you know, and I was really excited for him because he has grown so much in the expressions that he has and stretches his mind, so it's been a good thing.
Do you remember what the first piece was that you blacksmithed?
Yes, I do. When I went to when I was 16, I built, hammered out a knife, and I still have it. But I sort of got away from it then. And when I started back going visiting the 92-year-old blacksmith over in Florida, Alabama, the reason I went, the recession and all that brought on people opening up their fireplaces and stuff, they had beautiful fireplace tools set by the fireplace, but they were not functional. They were just to look at. So everybody wanted a functional fire poker and a shovel, so I started building those, and the fire pokers really sold like crazy. I built hundreds of them. And I have people come to me all the time and say, you remember that fire poker that I got from you years and years ago? Yeah, I remember it. Like it was the only one, you know. And they said, well, you know, that thing is still going and it is held up good. And I said, well, that's the way I built it. It's a lifetime poker. And that's what I told them when they bought them. If they had any problem with it, bring it back and I'd repair it or give them another one. So, being at the right time, right place, you know, is helped out on that.
So you actually made a living at blacksmithing then?
It was a side living. I even hired a fellow to help me. Because I didn't quit my regular job because I knew this other would be temporary, it's seasonal. So I just wanted to capture the opportunity, and I did. And it didn't last but a couple of years, and then it was over with. So it was fun and very enjoyable. I'd come in from work in the evenings and go out there and find out what he'd done all day, and then I'd work for 2 or 3 hours and go to bed.
So blacksmithing and FABA, was that the seed that helped the idea for the Panhandle Pioneer Settlement?
It was, I'd been thinking of that for many years before FABA because my grandparents' farmstead was moved to Tallahassee from Calhoun County and put over there in the museum. I think there's 4 buildings, 4 or 5 that they moved from the home place to Tallahassee Museum, and that really bothered me that we had wonderful buildings there in our county and they were fastly disappearing. People moved out of them, abandoned them, and they would fall to the ground. And I knew if I didn't do something in a hurry, there wouldn't be anything left. So I had a meeting and got that place sort of started and got people to help, and we have members about like FABA does, and it's been a good ride.
Tell us the difference that you see in FABA now than, you know, when it first began?
Well, I sort of touched on it a little bit. A lot of the people were building functional items, but now then with the economy up and people got money, they like to have one-of-a-kind ornate pieces that they can show and live with, I guess. But it was sort of like in the 40s, you didn't build anything unless you were in a big city to decorate with. It was strictly functional to keep the farm going, keep the homestead going, whatever. But today, people that buys this ornate stuff, they don't have time, they don't have the talent to build it, so they will be gladly to pay somebody to do it if they desire it, you know. And one of the hardest things about it today, when they were working on the farmsteads, there wasn't much money transacted, a lot of bartering. But you always gave the man the value of his work back. But today, when people buy stuff, they don't realize that a fella has to make a living wage. If he's got 40 hours in that thing, he's got to get 40 hours pay out of it. And this sort of upsets people because they think they can pick it up for $10 or $15, you know. They're just not educated to how much actual work goes and labor goes into this thing.
So, what's the craziest thing you ever made?
Well, I guess right now, when I look back on that knife that I made when I was 16 years old, there was a lot of things I didn't know about how to where to hit the metal and whatever. I made a beautiful shaped knife, but I only hammered on one side of it. And when you hammer on one side, that side stretches, and you've got a U-shaped knife. And I didn't know how to straighten it out, so I just kept hammering, and then you just kept going into a half circle. So I look at it and laugh. And when I've taught classes, I always encourage people to keep their first piece. Do not get rid of it, because you can see on that piece from now on what you should have done differently. And when you build another one, you're going to correct some of them. You may take a dozen before you can get it like you want it. But keep that first piece, and then you can always see what you need to do about it. And people will ask me, how do you like this? I said, I like it fine. How do you like it? And that's the key to it, is to, and they beam, you know, when they have done something they really didn't think they could do themselves. And this really thrills me to see that. They're growing.
Yeah.
Their mind's expanded, you know, so.
So tell me what question I should have asked you.
What question, what?
I should have asked you.
Oh my goodness. I don't have a clue, Dot. I think that as long as we're working with people, giving of ourselves, going out of our way to help people, the pay that you get, money can't buy. Because you have encouraged another person's life, you have directed him in a direction he didn't think he could go to better himself. So the organization, and you know this has been, ever since I've been in it, is to help people. That's the main priority, is to help these people. That's what the conference is for, to give these people an opportunity to learn other members of different districts of Florida. And when you give of yourself to help another person, they will bloom. That's like putting fertilizer on a flower. And if we can't do that, if we can't help our fellow man in some way, you know, where are we going to bloom?
Well, it's been a pleasure.
Can I ask a question? Actually, got two. How did you find somebody like Linda? She's the most amazing person in the world.
Linda, I got her on a bet. We were out, I worked with her dad for many years, and when I was in school, and we were planting grass, pasture grass, behind the tractor sitting on a planter. And after a while she says, I wonder what time is it? Well, I had a pocket watch and she didn't know it. So I pulled it out and I looked at it when she wasn't looking, and I told her, it looks like it's about so and so time, you know. She says, I bet it's not. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll bet you a banana split it is. So she hollered up at her daddy, what time is it? Well, he pulled his watch out, he told her. And she looked at me, how did you do that? And I said, I got a banana split out of it, I know that. So that's how we started going out, and really got a good one, because she's put up with a lot over the years, and living with somebody like me is not easy.
Guy who collects buildings.
Well, Willard is very passionate about a lot of things, and he doesn't, from my experience, he does not take no for an answer. He finds a way to do things, and I've always admired that about you, and know that you've done that, you know, your whole life. And one of the stories that I have heard that is the wanting to be in the band. So maybe you'd like to share that?
That's too far back. I better not do that. I will share this though, that my family was a very poor family. We never owned a car. We had a mule and wagon. My world was very short. Whatever we could go and come back in a day on a mule and wagon, that's as big as the world that I'd ever seen. And we didn't get electricity until I was 12 years old. When I'd come in from school, I'd have to change clothes and work, you know, trying to make a living out on a piece of land plowing a mule, and you can't do that. But anyhow, when you're plowing that mule, your mind's going all kind of directions. And I'd like to look at magazines because they expanded my world. And when you talk with people and they have done certain things in their life, you know, I felt like, well, why can't I do some of that too? My father died when I was 16. I had to quit regular school and get a job and sort of look after my two younger brothers and my mother then. And by doing that, I graduated on time by going to night school, and also was able to maintain my job. And going to college was just out of it. And I would have loved to went to college, but for scholarships back then, they was few and far between. And I got to wanting to do things, and got to thinking about it. Nobody's going to do it for you. You got to do it yourself. You want to do it. And I've sort of been that way all my life. I think of something that can help other people and involve other people. I will jump on it and go to recruiting and not take no for an answer. And it's been a fun ride. It put Linda into uncomfortable situations, but she's tough. I'm gonna tell you, she's tough. And she joined in with me on this many years ago, and we raised our 3 girls. They all got good educations, good jobs, and but they do not have the drive to do something outside the boundaries. And to me, it's a challenge, you know, to move out in undisturbed waters. And I like challenges, but I'm slowing down quite a bit because I'm getting old enough now. I'm 74, and I can't remember things like I used to. And I still have a lot of energy, which I'm blessed with that, and I feel like it's time to back off and let the other group coming along take up and go with it. And when I backed off of FABA, a lot of people said, you can't do that, you won't be able to do it. Went to bed one night, president, next morning woke up, not, and it didn't bother me a bit, because it was in good hands. And it's been in good hands. And like any other thing, it's ups and downs, and you just you smooth them off, you take care of the problems, and you move on. And I've had a wonderful, wonderful life, and I enjoy people, and I enjoy unusual things, and I enjoy friends, and I just so thankful to have friends and hoping that never make them mad.
When Skeeter and Clyde Payton came into the group, they came from a pretty different, I mean, Clyde's, but Skeeter was the head doctor in the state, wasn't he, at the time?
Skeeter was over every medical facility in the state of Florida. Your health departments, your hospitals, and he traveled all over the state of Florida. In fact, he's the only one that I know that's had a building named after him and him still living. And I told him I wanted to go in there with him one day so I wouldn't have to get a pass. He shook his head. He says, they won't even let me in there without a pass. So, but yeah, Skeeter is a very likable person. He's very intelligent. He's got a lot of wisdom, and Skeeter would do anything in the world to help you. And Clyde is very intelligent. Clyde had a very good job with the I don't even remember with the state. And Clyde is a driver and he's a pusher also, and that's what it's taken to have successful FABA. Jerry Grice was in there, and Jerry was a pusher, and he was the type of person, you don't tell him what he can't build, you just ask him to do it and he will do it. So regardless of what it was, Jerry was one of the driving forces with the organization also. And the thing of what I liked about the early group, I don't know about now because I haven't been connected to them. When you had a meeting and you said, okay, this needs to be done, and they would volunteer, you didn't have to worry about it, it was done. Same way with John and Doc Butler there, that, you know, when they get a job, they do it. They've got the driving force and the obligation to do this job. And they feel like they're a failure if they don't carry through with it.
That's why I got Dot to ask you to do the interview.
But it's a good, stable organization, and I see younger people getting into it, and I would like them to think about getting a higher education and not depend on blacksmithing for a living. It's a wonderful outlet. There's so much fulfillment in it, but they also have to realize that you've got to make a living in this world. I wouldn't recommend blacksmithing.
I think he's right. Yeah, you see all the people who make things, people make beautiful quilts, and people think, well, I can get one of those for $150 at Walmart, you know, and well, yeah.
Yeah, you get what you pay for, and like I was saying a while ago, they don't realize the man hours has been put into that thing before it comes out beautiful and one-of-a-kind items. There's been a lot of thought, a lot of sleepless nights on some of that stuff to make it, and if the dedication that a blacksmith has, he almost is compelled to do a good job and to satisfy that person. He will lose sleep over it. He will wring his hands and stress over it, but he's dedicated, and that's what I admire about him.
Blacksmiths, I guess, used to be like the original engineers. They did everything.
Yeah. I read something every once in a while about the early blacksmith, and if they was a blacksmith in a young town and just started, that's where everybody went first with their horses and mules to find out where all the buildings were in town and what was here and what was there and do repairs. And they would ask him to, you know, my tooth is hurting, would you pull my tooth? He'd pull the teeth. He would marry people. There is no telling, whatever job that they wanted to do, he would do it for them. They would come in and say, I don't have any money. My wife will wash your clothes or she'll patch your clothes if you do so-and-so. Well, of course he would, you know, because he knew he couldn't patch his clothes or didn't have time to wash them, and that was a wonderful trade. Bring in food to him, that's all they were working for anyway, is food, you know. So it's been a wonderful bartering system over the years, and I don't think as much of that today because people got to pay light bills.
And you're still teaching.
Well, not as much as I used to. I still, I like to have classes in the cool weather. I just have some through the summer. And the people that works in air conditioning, you're almost signing their death warrant to get them out there in that blacksmith shop in the heat of the summer. And I know a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, I was down in the hospital and was in the operating room for colonoscopy. And the doctor was late, and here all these people standing around me waiting for the doctor, where's the doctor? So we got to talking, they want to know what I did, where I was from, whatever. So I told them about the blacksmith class that was coming up. And they said, well, you know, I wouldn't mind going to that. And if you've ever been in an operating room, it's like a deep freeze. And this is where these people work every day. Well, it was in July, we had the blacksmith class. There was 3 of them came, male nurses and anesthesiologists, they all came. Well, 9 o'clock, one of them couldn't hold it. He went over and after the king. So, sent him home. Another one held in till noon. He'd already got quite pasty looking. So, there was one of them did make it all day, and to make it, long story short, every one of them hated like everything to leave because they had found something they could build and get involved in. I try not to have in hot weather anymore too much. I got to pick my students. If they're in air conditioning, I don't want them out there. Work outside, you can have them. We got fans going and whatever. I can drink water, just stop and drink water about every hour. So it's worked out pretty good on that.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions, David?
I'm good. Thank you so much.
I've got one more thing I'd like to add. And I would like to ask Dave on this. What do you see the blacksmith being like in another 10 to 15 years? The organization.
You know, I'm worried about the transition from the next generation, and I think that what we see is like a lot of things where you'll see people like the kids who are there today, and they'll go off and they'll get their education and they'll get their do wives and husbands and all those things, and maybe when they're 45, 50 years old, they'll start thinking about, gee, you know, I've got a little scratch now, maybe wonder if I could get myself a blacksmith shop set up, or they'll need hinges for the, this and the, well, I got a welding torch and a piece of steel, and I think that it's one of those things that that as long as there's a thread, it'll go on, but it's fragile. I mean, if you got a state of 15 million people and there's maybe 300 blacksmiths, 100 per million, I mean per 5 million is not very many. But I think that we worry about things going extinct and the next generation being worthless and all that. We weren't worthless. We were half-fast, right? But I don't know. What do you think, Doc?
I think it took us a long time to get where we're at now, and people like Willard and, the members in our group, they work very hard at promoting blacksmithing and bringing in our young people and keeping them interested. I think that that's one thing about FABA is it embraces new people and young people, and we are very family oriented, which makes us very different from a lot of organizations, and we are a craft that is not afraid to share its knowledge. And I think you're right. We've seen that where younger people, they come in and they go off and they come back. I see more younger people, I think, than we've had. I think I see them more and more, but that may be a positive hopefulness that I have. But I just, and that's our duty is to, train our replacement.
The one thing that's been a blessing since the revival of the blacksmith a few years ago, there wasn't much material out there, reading material, instructions on how to bring it back. And you depended on old Smith to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And now then there is so many books and so much stuff available to people on blacksmithing that there's just unlimited directions you could go in the field of blacksmithing. And there's so much wealth that's been put out on books or in DVDs for people to work off of.
And I think one thing that holds back is that people don't work all their life anymore. They don't physically labor mostly. If you have a job that changes things, you're probably running a machine that does most of the work instead of, you got behind that mule, and that mule may have been walking, but you were walking behind, there was wrestling involved. And I think that people they don't know how to work hard as hard as a blacksmith would work.
Stay
all
with
day.
it.
Yeah, and just that physical
Work ethic.
You watch.
Work ethic. Mm-hmm.
Like Trez Cole in our region makes his living as a blacksmith. And he's a giant guy. He's a retired Marine, and he just works. He doesn't pause to admire what he just did and sort of drink some iced tea like I do and like that. He works on it, and then he works on something else, and then it's like, and that may be something that's being lost as a skill for people. I mean, you may work, you work at Litho House, you're working from this and this, and you step over, but mostly you're not. Well, maybe you are. You're lifting barges, and a lot of it is thinking and sitting at a computer and like that.
Right.
And
it's not as physical
labor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'd like to hear from you two what you have got from blacksmithing, just for the...
You're the interviewer.
Oh, what have I got? Oh, wow. Well, first of all, this is like a family to me. John and I grew up with the blacksmiths. We were married in '84, and then in '85, we were with the blacksmiths. John found a piece of metal in the back of a sheet of metal in the back of a shed that we were tearing down, and he looks at this and he says, "I'm going to make a knife out of this." And I was like, "Okay," and I go on, and probably 2 weeks later he comes back and he's been to the library, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, I found a book, how to make knives," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." He says, "I have to find a blacksmith," and a blacksmith? Where do you, a blacksmith? Where do we find a blacksmith? And we didn't know FABA was in the process of being formed at this time, and a friend and ours, which was Jerry Grice, we walked into his shop, and John and I do a lot of things together, and we went into the shop, and Jerry Grice was there, and he said, "You got to join FABA," and he signed, signed us up.
Sign here.
Yeah. And it was then we went from there, and we learned everything from, blacksmithing, started as everything, we're all, so I can't say it's done one thing for me. It's done, it's just been a part of our lives, because we've served on the board, we've done, what needs to be done, and it's like Willard, for us, it's a passion. It's, it is a passion.
You don't want to be a failure at it, do you?
No. I can organize the blacksmiths. But, no, I don't want to be a farrier. That's some hard work.
That's the way most of them think.
They do. That's right. Yep.
Well, no, I came at it a little differently. I was working with the Folklife Bureau, and one of our jobs was to keep little children from being eaten by the fire and the things like that, which they have a great talent for getting into something before you can say, "Don't do that." They've already done it.
Yeah.
And so I was guarding. I could choose some of what I did, and I was guarding the blacksmith shop, which was where I sort of like to stay. Hot but fun. And Skeeter had actually helped us to design the blacksmith shop, and I like to hang out with him. He hands me a chunk, just like a 1 inch wide by a quarter strip of metal, and says, "Make something while I go to the bathroom." And that was it. It was like, now you're a blacksmith. And he came back and he says, "Is that what you made?" Skeeter's always so.
Yeah, he tried.
But I was quite proud of it. I thought it looked something like a fish. And I still have that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look anything like a fish. But but I've, for years I was sort of a very occasional blacksmith, and I'd come to the meetings. I had gradually got some equipment, but now that I've retired, I've got a lot more time for it, and it's becoming, more central in my life. I had jobs that sort of were consuming, and I don't regret that. That was what you were doing, but it's always been, the blacksmithing has been something that I wanted to bring more into focus. And then one day we go visit Skeeter, right? And he's Skeeter and Lou, and we're sitting there quietly minding our own business, and he says, "I want you to be the clinker breaker editor." And I said, no, definitely not. And about a half an hour later, I was running for the clinker breaker editor.
Well, that's the way it is.
Yeah.
You see qualified people, and the people that's got the drive to not fail, and that's what makes it successful.
What I wonder about with Skeeter is he's hard. I was looking at the he did that history of FABA. He's hardly ever been the officer of anything. He's been involved and he's gotten a lot of things done. But he was never president. He was never vice president. He was a trustee and like that. But
Was the historian.
He's the power behind it.
That's right.
Yep.
Well, there's several like him that just behind the scenes and keep this thing going, and that's what makes it successful. I joined an organization, not going to tell you what it is, several years ago, 5 years ago. This year they do not have a newsletter. They have not made contact with any of their members. And I don't see it lasting very long because there's no dedication and no consuming like you were talking about. That to be, I don't want to be the one to drop the ball. And this is what's in our organization.
Yeah.
It's a great organization. FABA's just an awesome place.
The friendships, the families that we've seen grow up in it, the children that still, if you've learned to know them, they still think a lot of you, and they will still give you a hug when they see you. And I had a young fellow this morning I taught several years ago the beginning class down in Barberville, and I spent a little time with him. And today, he was all excited to tell me what he'd been up to and what he's wanting to achieve. It was important that I know. Well, it was important that I did know, so I could tell him, encourage him that I am so proud of you. You're so much better now than you were then. And he smiles from ear to ear, and this means something to them. They realize that I have accomplished something. I have done something, And a lot of people go through life all their life and never have done anything in their mind.
Yeah, there is a sort of a, when you take something and make it be what you want, it's like, there it is.
And the thing about blacksmithing is, to be successful, several years ago I was, all of a sudden you get, am I successful? What is success? And what formula can I use to be successful, and what does other people use to be successful? And the author in this book I was reading says there is no shortcuts to success, only hard work. So anytime you read about somebody that's accomplished something, they have went over and beyond their 40 hours a week or whatever to make this thing successful. And this is an example here. Wonderful organization. Wonderful people.
Thank you for stirring the pot.
There you go. Well, I think we're gonna root to these chairs if we don't stop.
Okay. All right.
Well, I didn't mean to take up so much of your time.
Oh, good grief. That was what I meant you to.
Well, two of my favorite people here, that's
Oh, we got one more thing we need you to do. You could both. Just for the archive to be able to properly have this, you need to just say that you did it and made it voluntarily available?
You may. Go ahead. I got it. Okay.
You
I
might
don't
want
think we
to.
were volunteered. I think we were.
Well, just assume a virtue if you have it not.
We were shanghaied.
As normal.
But didn't you have a good time being Shanghai?
Oh.
I want to thank you, David. There again, you've gone over and above, and
Yeah, you know, a place that makes you feel welcome, you want to make it better.
what's the date, Doc? 10 what?
11.
Well, guess it was 10/10, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I wonder what tomorrow will be. You know, the forms and all this is all from the Veterans History Project that I was telling you
Well,
about.
that's great.
And it's something that they doing this. The Library of Congress does this Veterans History thing of recording, like getting two people to talk and usually, you know, veterans and or people who like were involved in like Rosie the Riveter types in World War II or things like that. And there's so many people that they've got their stuff is not valued anymore. You know, it's like, what's this old junk from Grandpa?
Yeah.
Well, wait a second.
Yeah.
You know, that's not old junk.
Yeah.
That somebody went to a lot of trouble for that.
We're going through that right now with one of our veterans. Well, with a lot of our veterans, actually. We just moved a gentleman over into Lake City. He's 96. And he's actually done work for Disney. I mean, it's just, you know, he's, just done some amazing things. And he has these boxes and boxes and boxes of slides and photographs. And so we've got a young man who's going through and trying to somewhat archive it for him so it can be donated, because it's, you know, to make it worth something, because
without the words it doesn't mean much.
Right, and it's lost, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, this looks like a rat's nest, but I hope that this will get us something, you know, that we can do. And you might think about doing a interview with him to put an overall context on it.
That is
and
good.
send it off to the Library of Congress.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
You can look it up at the Library of Congress, loc.gov, and it's the Veterans History Project, something along those lines.
Yeah.
All right.
Alrighty.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
Well, thank you
And send
for thinking of stuff
send in
like
the
this.
next victims. No, wait, there aren't any next. We have to go beat the bushes
Go
and find
recruit,
some
guys.
more.
Send you some more. All right.
You know, you and John could do with a sit down.
Yep, that would be good. That would be good.
We'll let you recover for a little bit.
Yeah, David being one of those people many years ago in my tenure that called and said, we need to have a regional meeting, and I want to make them a little Mike Murphy orgies. And I was like, okay. Because I was like, I'm easy. I can do anything. Mike, you want to go, and you win. So.
That's great.
See?
That's what it takes.
Piece of cake.
Yeah.
It takes ignorant people asking dumb questions to make everything work.
Well, I can see if I can find Mr.
All right, thanks.
Cousin